Tony Ferguson is the prime example of what happens to most UFC fighters, starting off their career with amazing finishes, amazing performances, and getting to the top of the division. But at some point, the expiration date hits, and we see these fighters go on massive losing streaks and wind up being fed to young prospects. Now, Tony Ferguson is unique in this because he is one of the few examples that you can name of somebody that is falling off, that is still popular, that still has that fan base. And he is going to fight Paddy Pimblett this weekend in a matchup that seems seemingly impossible, yet some people are picking Tony Ferguson, and there's definitely some reasons for it. And I'm going to tell you guys what I think about the matchup, and I have a prediction after watching all of the film between Tony Ferguson and Paddy Pimblett. I think I know what is going to happen in this fight. But first, I want to remind you guys to hit the subscribe button, like, comment, and share. We're trying to hit 20K by the end of the year. You guys are the best fan base in MMA, so I know you guys are going to help me with that goal. And it is UFC 296 fight week, guys. If you guys are curious for my prediction between Leon Edwards and Colby Covington, the video is up right now. I suggest you guys go check that out because I broke it down. I said my prediction. And tune in tomorrow at 10 a.m. because I believe I will be releasing some more prediction videos unless some news comes out. I'm going to be talking about Alexander Pantoja versus Brandon Royval 2, Stephen Wonderboy Thompson versus Shavkat Rakhmonov, and Ian Gary and Vicente Luque is also going to be on that video, guys, so tune into that. I just felt like I didn't want to make a whole video for all of those fights because I felt like that isn't necessarily a topic that I think should take up a whole video. But however, if you guys do want them to have their own video, comment in the comment section below and I will make their own video. But let's talk about the matchup. So Tony Ferguson obviously has been going down a long losing streak. It all started when he fought Justin Gaethje. He got battered, then he lost to Oliveira and Dariush, two really good guys. Chandler's also a good guy, but we saw that Chandler knocked out Tony Ferguson, and after that it just seemed like his career really went downhill. He had some success in that Michael Chandler fight, but when you look at the Nate Diaz fight and the Bobby Green fight, it's just like, damn, this is a really washed up Tony Ferguson. And Paddy Pimblett is rather new to the UFC. I mean, his debut was in 2021, so at this point he's been here over 2 years and is coming off of one of the worst fight weeks for a new UFC fighter because it all started off with him beefing with Ariel Helwani and basically him getting owned. Then he had a terrible performance against Jared Gordon, breaking his foot, getting injured, and was basically a laughingstock for a whole year with really nothing else. I mean, the guy really had to hear all of this talk throughout the past year, not being able to fight, because usually when you fight, those kind of talks go away, right? When you get a good win, people stop talking, but Paddy wasn't able to get a good win, so how is that going to affect his mind state? I want to talk about that in this video too. Now, I'm going to say something maybe controversial. Does Tony Ferguson have the tools in his arsenal to beat a guy like Paddy Pimblett? Absolutely. I think that Tony Ferguson 1000% with the right game plan and with the right approach can beat Paddy Pimblett. Now, will he have the right approach? We're going to get into that as well. Now, I think that there's a big misconception about Paddy Pimblett. People are saying he's trash, you know, he's bad at everything. He is not good, I'm going to be honest. I don't think that he could really even get into the top 10, maybe the top 15, and there's a few guys there. But what people don't realize, because in the UFC, he's really very little shown it. Most of the time he gets submissions like this. His ground game, his submission game is elite, and that is the threat to Tony Ferguson, in my opinion. I think Tony Ferguson could probably keep it on the feet and be fine. If I'm Tony Ferguson, the game plan has to be to keep it on the feet. We've seen Paddy Pimblett get hurt by shots, and he was hurting Bobby Green. He dropped Michael Chandler. Tony Ferguson still has his power, right? That is the last thing to go. Most people have it even when they're old. That's why the heavyweight division does so well with older guys. Your cardio, your strength, your chin, the damage adding up, all of those things are going to play a factor. Guys, something concerning about this matchup is, in my opinion, look, if I'm Tony Ferguson looking at this, you want the path that's easiest for you. Going to the ground game is a no with Paddy Pimblett. Now, I don't think that Paddy Pimblett could submit Tony Ferguson within seconds. Like, they get right into the ground and, you know, Paddy just has his way with him. My point is, why risk it? I mean, we saw Bobby Green just submit Tony Ferguson, and to be fair, that was a very sneaky submission by Bobby Green, and he was very fast on acting on it. So I think if people are trying to say, like, oh, Bobby Green subbed him, that means Paddy round one sub, I don't think that logic holds up, because also nobody expected Bobby Green to go for a submission against Tony Ferguson, especially with 20 seconds left of the fight. And if I'm Tony Ferguson, I'm avoiding the ground game like the plague. We've seen Tony Ferguson jump to submissions, even against guys like Beneil Dariush, who is a black belt of jiu-jitsu, has phenomenal jiu-jitsu, and he's just dropping to the ground. And to be fair, it is worth mentioning that Paddy Pimblett's first loss, and this is a young Paddy Pimblett, this was a very long time ago, was when he went for a takedown and got anaconda choke, and he went out cold. Now, that was a long time ago. At the time, he was 4-0, and I think he's definitely improved on it, and I just wanted to address that because some people might say, well, Jack, that could be a possibility. But keep in mind, making a mistake like that in a fight, getting submitted like that, that's going to stay with you, I assume, right after. Paddy was probably working on that, trying to figure out what happened. So I think if Tony Ferguson really does drop down to a Darce, I think we're going to see Paddy Pimblett really experienced here because of that last fight that he lost. And I think, like I said, to end up the Tony Ferguson section, I think he's got to keep it on the feet, use the jab, use your power, move around and go forward. You have to pressure Paddy Pimblett in order to tag him. But it's a problem because Tony Ferguson, whenever someone goes at him, especially, he'll just go all the way back, basically letting his opponent walk him down. And that's dangerous because if Tony Ferguson is against the cage, that means Paddy Pimblett could shoot. That means Paddy Pimblett can maybe get into a clinch and then hip toss him. Now, what is the game plan for Paddy Pimblett, guys? It's to keep it on the ground, guys. I think if Paddy Pimblett wants to win this fight, the easiest way, it is to keep it on the ground. First of all, tuck the chin, Paddy. I mean, I'm just going to say it every single time we're predicting a Paddy video. He has to tuck his chin. We've seen guys that are at a lower level tag Paddy Pimblett, right? Jared Gordon won that last fight. I don't care about the scorecard. He won the fight. It was a clear robbery. And we saw Jared Gordon rock him so many times. It's not like Jared Gordon has so much power. And I think, first of all, if I'm Paddy Pimblett taking this to the ground, I think, look, maybe you could shoot single legs. Maybe you could shoot double legs. And that is mostly because Tony Ferguson lets people get those because he jumps to submission. But in my opinion, I think Paddy kind of has to mix it up a little bit, keep it standing in the beginning, and go for takedowns maybe around the 3-minute mark to 2.5-minute mark, and just bank the rounds that way. That would be my game plan. Try to find a submission, get some ground and pound across. Tony Ferguson's going to be a hard guy to submit. He's a black belt in jiu-jitsu. I don't care how old he is. The guy knows body position. He also was wrestling all in college. The guy is very good on the ground and has drills that are just now innate to him that he just does. And that's what makes Tony Ferguson so tricky on the ground and why he gets so many submissions. But we're talking about a black belt like Paddy Pimblett. Paddy Pimblett is very good on the ground, very good rear naked choke. And I think if I'm him, I wouldn't necessarily go for double legs or single legs, especially because of the threat of the darts from Tony Ferguson, but maybe go for those hip tosses that Paddy Pimblett is so good at throwing. But I think my prediction is rather obvious. I think you guys can probably tell from the tone of the video. I'm going to go with Paddy Pimblett. Guys, if you guys don't know, I do not like Paddy Pimblett. One of my most popular videos on the channel, what gave this channel a lot of subscribers, was my video criticizing Paddy Pimblett. So honestly, I don't like Paddy. I think he's probably one of the more obnoxious fighters on the roster. But at the end of the day, the guy does have a good ground game. I think I see how this fight going. You know, they're on the feet for a while. I think we're going to see very little volume from Tony Ferguson because the thing is that the guy doesn't have any volume, dude. Maybe that's why he was training with David Goggins, right? Maybe the reason that he didn't have volume in his past fights was because of a cardio issue or maybe a fear of cardio. I didn't really talk about the whole David Goggins situation. I talked about it on a short a while ago, so that's why I wasn't really talking about it here. But just to reiterate my thoughts, of course, there's worry of overtraining, but I do think that there is some benefit. Tony Ferguson, you know, going on such a losing streak, maybe the confidence isn't there. Maybe he needs that something to be doing different in a training camp to give him that boost of confidence. And I think a lot of people underestimate how important it is to be mentally okay going into a fight. So I don't necessarily mind him doing that. Of course, though, he should not be overtraining himself. It definitely has to be watched. But maybe that cardio will give him the confidence to throw a lot more volume and to put the pace on Paddy Pimblett. Maybe that's why he went there. But even his coaches tell him in the corner. I mean, his coaches give him such good advice. Like, I don't know if there's a chemistry issue between him and his coaches or something like that, but his coaches tell him solid advice and tell him what to do. And it just seems like Tony goes out there and does the complete opposite. I know recently he's gotten back with his old trainers, so maybe that's a good thing, but they tell him the correct things to do, and it's like he just doesn't listen. But how do I see the fight going, guys? I think we're going to keep it standing in the beginning. I think we're going to see Tony Ferguson have some moments early, and people will be like, oh, wow, this is a pretty close fight. And then I think about 2 minutes into the fight, we're going to see Paddy Pimblett get a takedown, whether, you know, he shoots for a double leg and Tony Ferguson jumps to a submission, or maybe he just gets a hip toss, or maybe just gets one clean. I think he's going to get the takedown, control him for the rest of the round, and then I think we're going to see in the second round, Tony Ferguson once again have some success on the feet. And then I think similarly, about a minute or two into that round, we're going to see Paddy Pimblett once again take him down. And then I think we're going to see a second round submission. If I were to guess what submission, this is a tough one, but I'm going to go rear naked choke, but I would not be surprised if this goes to a decision either. I just think that Paddy Pimblett is very good on the ground, very fast, and I think that Tony Ferguson, he sometimes just gets so ahead of himself trying to submit his opponent that he gets submitted himself. I mean, that's how the submission with Bobby Green happened, is because Tony Ferguson was trying to set up a buggy choke, and that perfectly aligned his arm next to Bobby Green's face, but that could have happened anyway, to be fair. But my point is that sometimes he gets a little over ahead of himself, then he puts himself in dangerous positions, right? Remember, position over submission, and that's what's going to win the fight for Tony Ferguson. But let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Do you guys think that it is possible for Tony Ferguson to beat Paddy Pimblett? It is possible. It is. I think if he wins, it has to be by catching Paddy Pimblett. However, I think Paddy will either win by a submission or a decision. Let me know in the comment section below what you guys think, guys. Thank you guys for watching. You guys are the best fan base in MMA, and tune into my Colby Covington and Leon Edwards prediction video. I put a lot of work into that, and tune into the video tomorrow. Thank you guys for watching. You guys are the best fan base in MMA, and I'll see you guys in the next one.